if you're like me who uses Copilot but doesn't remember the new features, maybe this is the time for us to shine because there's always something new. But Julia will be leading the session. Let me do a brief introduction to Julia. I met Julia in, I think, 2019 when we were student ambassadors for the Microsoft Learn Ambassador Program. It's now open again, so please apply. So she was doing something amazing with the Imagine Cup competition, and I think they reached the regionals, right? In the Netherlands regionals a few years after. And something awesome is she's been in Microsoft for now, I think she'll be clocking 4 years in a few. And I've worked with her over we've been in the same team and different teams, but something notable is she's a very good JavaScript developer. And recently she is a GitHub expert as well. So if you've been to any of her talks, you know she has all the knowledge around GitHub Copilot that you'll be mind blown. So over to you, Julia. If you have any question, you can write it on the chat. I'll be here to check it out. And then there's a poll that I had. I don't know if you can be able to see my poll. If you can't, I can just recreate it. Okay, thank you so much and welcome to the session. Over to you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Bethany. That was such a warm introduction. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I won't even go beyond that part. Thank you for the amazing intro. My name is Julia. I am a developer advocate at Microsoft, and I am just excited for this session. We've been planning and just talking about having this session for quite some time now. And the whole idea here is we want to just have honest conversations around GitHub Copilot. I know things have been moving so fast in this space. So for this session, the whole idea is for us to basically just have a conversation. So I do have a presentation prepared, but it's my hope that it won't be one way. If you have any questions, please drop them on the chat. And if someone can just confirm, just try typing something on the chat. I want to see if I'll see it pop up here. Because I'm hoping that we'll just have some conversations. Bethany Arthur says he can't submit the vote for the poll. Probably you could look into that. So if you're not able to submit a vote in the poll above, also just let us know. But not to worry, you can just type your response. And I'll be talking more about what that poll is in a second. So as I said, that's the whole purpose for this session. So please, if you feel like there's a burning question or any question for that matter, don't wait until the end of the session. Let's just jump on it and have a conversation if need be. So you're probably wondering, why do we have this session here and who is this session tailored for? This is a sort of intro to GitHub Copilot, or let's call it a reintroduction to GitHub Copilot, because I'm sure most of you have tried Copilot at some point, but after staying off it for some time and coming back again, you almost couldn't recognize it because of how fast things are changing. So the idea here is that we're going to just talk about some of the basics of Copilot, some of the slightly advanced concepts, and all this is as a precursor to a very big event that we'll have next month, which is the Copilot Dev Days event. And again, I'll just talk more about that in the next slide. So as I said, this session is for everyone, whether you're new to Copilot, whether you're a seasoned user, basically this is the right space for you. And then we get to the poll that we have on the chat, right? So this will help me gauge where I should focus more the most. Now, Copilot is one of those sessions where I prefer to not show up with a very strict and predefined demo. My idea is I want to learn from you guys. What are you using the most? What are you not familiar with? And then I can spend more time on that. That's why it's incredibly helpful if you could spend some time and just in a second or two, just submit a vote in the poll that you see above. It's simply asking your proficiency level with GitHub Copilot. You've probably not used it before. That's fine. That's why we're here. So if you've not used Copilot before, just click that option in the poll. If you use it a little bit, also let us know. If you use it a lot, yeah, you use it a lot, let us know. And if you've used it to an extent where you feel like you're an expert and you can easily deliver this session with me, also let us know on that particular vote. I can see the responses coming in. Most people, 3 people really, have used it a lot. 2 have used it just a little. No one has not used it before, so we can just skip to the main things. And
No,
if you're
there's
not,
like 2 people who've not used it at all.
oh
So
wow,
there's
okay.
Pablo and then there's
I've
someone
seen,
else.
yeah, I've seen a comment from
Yeah.
Pablo. Thank you, Pablo. So you've not used it. I'm sure you'll find this session to be very helpful. Lowell has used it a little bit. Perfect. And kindly let's mute our mics just to avoid any disruptions if you join. Okay, so I think then we are all in the right space. I'm going to have this as a mix for both. That is someone who's totally new to it and someone who's been using it for a while. So this way everyone can at least learn something new by the time we wrap up. So thank you all so much for those responding. As I said, keep your questions coming. Let me know in the chat what questions you want us to start addressing. And I actually challenge you to think of what if scenarios. So if you see me present something and you're like, okay, Julia, what if I want to do it this way? Or what if I want to do this and this and this? Is it possible? Let us know. So let's just challenge each other in that particular aspect. So as I said, this is a session that comes as a precursor to the GitHub Copilot Dev Days that will be running next month. That's the 25th of April. Bethany, Edgar, Arthur, maybe you can share a link to register for this event in the chat. And those who haven't already can just sign up. So this will be on the 25th of April, and we'll sort of just take whatever we'll do today on the next level. So I'm really excited for this one, and I hope that I'll see all of you at that specific event. All right, so with that, we'll just get into Copilot. I promise we'll spend most of our time on VS Code. But before that, before we even get to see the actual tool, I prefer giving a very brief explanation of how it works. So that before you even accept a suggestion from Copilot, before you issue a task or some work to an AI agent, you already know what will happen behind the scenes. And with that knowledge, you should be able to explain if an agent doesn't deliver the way you need it to, you should be able to have those answers by yourself. So let's look at how Copilot goes on to fulfill a request. So what actually happens when you submit a prompt to GitHub Copilot? Now, in this case, let's assume you're working from an IDE, let's say Visual Studio Code. But remember, we have so many platforms in which you can leverage GitHub Copilot, from Copilot Mobile in the terminal through the Copilot CLI. You can interact with it through github.com. So you have so many platforms, but in this case, assume you're working on your IDE. So as you work, we have some agents behind the scenes, or just some algorithms running behind the scenes that are assembling context that will be sent back into the backend for this particular tool. So that's why you see every single time you're working, or let's say you're starting to write the name of a function, or you're starting to declare something, you'll see some auto completion. That's because every single time you're working on your IDE, we do have some algorithms behind the scenes trying to figure out what is relevant to this user, what are they trying to do, and how can we help. And one of the things that gets considered or taken in as context is anything that you have in your open editors. And that's the first tip I'll share with you. Whenever you're working with a tool like Copilot, if you have any relevant files to a certain feature you're working on, just have them open. Just by you having them open on your IDE, that's enough to set the right context for the language model that will power that whole experience. And the vice versa is true. So if you have files that are not relevant in any way to the feature you're working on, then just close it. This way you'll be minimizing the noise that ends up being captured as context. So the next step is, once this prompt is gathered, and is constructed, it doesn't hit the backend immediately, but rather goes through a proxy service. So it's securely transmitted into a proxy service. This is over HTTPS. And this proxy is responsible for a bunch of pre-model filters. So the first thing that happens is that we have a quick layer or a quick scan for toxic language. So this is any communication along the lines of hate speech, sexual content, violence. So all that will get dropped if from this filter we get such language within your prompt. And then number two, if you're interacting with Copilot via the chat, then we also have an intent classifier. So what this means is that GitHub Copilot is built specifically for software development tasks. So if for some reason you find yourself asking for a recipe to, I don't know, make ugali from GitHub Copilot, it should not give you a response. So for that reason, in the proxy layer, we do have an intent classifier that ensures that it's only responding to software development related questions. And then third, we also have a quick scan against prompt hacking. So if in your prompt or in the context that was gathered, there are any attempts to trick the model to basically do actions it's not supposed to do or to expose information it's not supposed to, then if that's detected at this step, then your prompt won't even end up getting to the backend. So assume that your prompt is clean, the context is clean, then that is transmitted to the underlying model. And at the time this slide was being created, we had OpenAI models powering GitHub Copilot. But as we all know, now we have something that we really take pride in at GitHub, which is developer choice, which is the idea that as a developer, you probably have your preferred models, your preferred providers, so you can come in and easily swap out the model that will power the whole Copilot experience. And I'll show that in the demo, so don't worry about it. So once that happens, once that happens, the model is going to send back n number of suggestions. And then these suggestions will again go through the same proxy service. And in this case, we have some post-model filters that will be applied. The first one is a quick check on the code quality. We don't want to just give you code with obvious vulnerabilities, obvious bugs. So we have that initial layer of just doing a quick code scan, but do not take this as a complete alternative to the security layers that you have for your code. So this in no way replaces what you currently have as part of your workflows, but it's just like a very thin layer of security to ensure that the code you're being given doesn't have any obvious bugs. And then we also have a check for any PII, any personally identifiable information. So if the model in any way brings back emails, phone numbers, IP addresses, then they all get dropped in this stage. And then finally, we have this optional feature, which is the suggestions matching public code. What this means is, let's take a case where you're part of an enterprise and you simply don't want to use people's code, right? And you don't want Copilot showing you code that is under a different organization with different licenses, in as much as that was part of the training data set. So with this feature enabled, that is the suggestion matching public code, before the suggestions are exposed to you on your IDE, again, I'll just request that you mute our mics. Bethany, maybe you can just help. You can help.
I keep like mute all.
Thank you. Yeah, so as I was saying, if you have this feature enabled, what that means is before the suggestions are shown to you, Copilot will do a check against the full index of code that was used to train it. And as we all know, Copilot was trained with billions and billions of lines of code from public repositories. So before it shows you the suggestion, it's simply just going to check whatever it has against that full index. And if it finds, I believe it's about 150 characters. So if it finds a block that is an exact match of something that sits in that training data set, it will not show that to the user. But if you have this feature disabled, That means Copilot will still show you the code, but it will be completely transparent with you. It's going to tell you that, hey, here are the suggestions that I have for you, but this is where I found code that matches whatever it is I'm giving you. So with that, you can click on the link, go check out the code, check out the licenses associated with the code, and then you can make an informed judgment call on what to do with that particular piece of code. So that's basically it for the life cycle. So as soon as you receive your suggestions, you can either accept, you can either iterate on, or you can deny. So that is what happens whenever you're working with tools like GitHub Copilot. All right, so let me just check in the chat if you have any questions. Pablo is asking, does it mean we can swap out OpenAI for Anthropic? Absolutely, and I will be showing you that in the next 2-3 minutes. He's also asking, is there a license cost to Copilot? Yes, we do have several pricing tiers, and I can just quickly show you. It's on the pricing page, so you should be able to see the different licenses. We have student plan, we have a free tier. We also have GitHub Copilot Pro, Pro Plus, and the business offerings. So that depends on whichever license you're able to access, but we do have several plans, as Bethany shared on the chat. Okay, so with that, I promised you that we'll spend most of our time on VS Code. So I'm just going to hop over to VS Code. And I hope you can all see VS Code. And basically, for those who've not used GitHub Copilot, welcome to VS Code. And once you're here and you've signed in with your GitHub account, you should have this chat icon at the very top. So click on that. So click on that, and then you'll basically get this chat interface that pops up either on the left, on the right, however you've chosen to configure your VS Code. So once you do that, this is basically where you can start having basic interactions with Copilot. At the very bottom, we have this Copilot icon. And as you can see, I've just hovered on it, and you can find more information about your license. So in this case, you can see that I am working with a Copilot Enterprise account or seat as part of my organization. So depending on the type of subscription you currently have, you should have that information there. Right next to that, you have this Manage Chat icon. If you click on that, this should take you to your Copilot settings page on github.com. So I won't click on that right now, but if you click on this, it should take you to your Copilot settings under your GitHub account. This way you can confirm and see the different features that you have enabled and those that you have disabled. So if for some reason you see me demoing something and you're trying to use it and you don't see it, this is a good place for you to go and just double check. Probably it's been disabled as part of your organization, or it's not yet supported in the subscription that you currently have. Then on this card, you can quickly just see a summary of the quota that you have remaining. So for most subscriptions, you have an allowance that resets every month. So you'll basically just see the progress and your usage. So if you're close to depleting your allocation, then you can rethink how you're approaching using these AI tools, just so you can have enough for the remaining duration. Then we also have the workspace index. The idea here is that for Copilot to effectively understand your code base, it will have two options. So it will either create a local index of your workspace. So this is basically what the default is. So that means if your project is not really bulky, it's just going to create a local index and then just use that to make it searchable and relevant as you're using Copilot. Or option two, it might opt to build a remote index. So this means it builds an index remotely under your account. This works for completely large code bases. So think of hundreds of thousands of code files. So basically, that's when it will result to building a remote index. And then basically, these are just some additional settings that you can have in terms of when you want Copilot to show up, when you don't want to have it all in your face, you can basically configure that. Then, like most language models, they are more helpful if you get very specific in both your prompt and the context that you pass along. At the beginning, I mentioned that every time you're working with Copilot, you have your open files. These open files get automatically looped in as part of a context. But we also have this plus icon, which allows you to attach very specific items or assets as context to your Copilot. So for example, you might be referring to a specific issue on GitHub. You can pass that in as context. You might be referring to a specific pull request. You've probably copied an image and you're working with a model that has vision capabilities. So you can basically just paste the image, send it in. So these are the sets of built-in context pieces that you can easily just attach into your chat to work with Copilot. I love problems because, especially in this era of vibe coding, you find that at some point everything is working, a minor change happens, and then all of a sudden your problems tab, as you can see right here, for me, I have 24 problems. So I can easily just click on that and then say all problems, and then all these problems will basically just be dragged into my Copilot window, and I can simply ask it to fix whatever is going on there if I have no business even knowing what's happening. So that's how you can come in and add very specific context pieces, again, just to make the most out of these models. Then the other thing is we have these session targets. So if you're on the latest VS Code Insiders, you should see this slightly different interface. But the idea here is that you can run this Copilot agent in different places. So the most popular is running it locally. So that's the local option. This means you just run a Copilot agent instance on your local computer, accessible via VS Code or whichever IDE you're working on. The other option is Copilot CLI or Git work tree or background agent, again, depending on the version that you're currently running. But the latest should have Copilot CLI. So what happens here is, and I'll give you a scenario. So think of one code base and you've spun multiple agents. So you have different agents all working locally on this one code base. That is a recipe for disaster because these agents don't really have visibility onto what each of the other agent is doing. So with Copilot CLI, as you can see here, it basically creates a Git worktree. So this means it will create a local copy of your code base. The agent will work on that copy in isolation. So it's just going to create its copy. It's going to work on it. If you had assigned a feature to that agent, it's going to work on the feature. And then it will come back and tell you, hey, I completed the feature. Can you check if it looks good? And then you can handle the merge back to your local copy. And then the third one is pretty obvious. This is where you want to run an agent in the cloud. So take an example where you've finished a brainstorming session with your local agent. You don't have time to work on it. So you just delegate it to an agent that sits on github.com. Again, I think I'll show this towards the end of the demo. But this way you can easily just flip your computer, go out for a walk, and then come back to a PR that is ready for your review. That's the cloud agent. Then these two options that you see down here, with GitHub Copilot from the Pro plan onwards, you also have access to Claude and Codex. Now, I'll repeat this because I feel like it's something that is not really appreciated enough. But what this means is instead of signing up for Claude subscription separately, and then you sign up for Codex subscription separately, and then another GitHub subscription, you can easily just have one GitHub subscription that is from Pro plan and above, and then you can have access to the Claude agent as well as Codex. So right now you can see I can easily just swap from GitHub Copilot to Codex, and I can send in a prompt like, what's this project about? This will get responded or picked up by the Claude agent. I can also switch to Codex, passing the same prompt. Let's wait for the chat to open. And please, guys, just cross your fingers because all my demos today are going to be live. So let's just pray to whatever deity we believe in that nothing happens today. but I can ask the same question. What is this project about? This again will go to the Codex agent, and I can just come back and start my new chat using the regular Copilot. So that is something that I feel that most people don't really appreciate as much, but it's incredibly useful. Instead of you just spending time and in some cases resources on different separate subscriptions, you can just have one and manage all these different agents, again, based on your preference. Let me just pop in on the chat, see if we have any questions. And thank you, Bethany, for sharing resources as we proceed. Okay, did the free tier remove some models like Claude Sonnet 4.6? That might be true. I'm not 100% sure. I say that because I believe last week we had a slight revision in the licensing. So you might find that some models, just for the sake of the sustainability for these particular offerings, some models were actually revised. So that also goes for the student plan. Some models were also revised. So there is a possibility, but I am not 100% sure.
Maybe I can confirm when you go to the free tier, the page for the pricing, you can be able to see which models are available depending on now the use case. So for the page that I shared, you'll see everything, the models available and everything you need. I think that will be
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Bethany. So Shimoli is asking, could you please clarify the implications of the limit reached message? Specifically, what functionality is affected and what options are available before reset date? Good question, but I'll just, let me see. I'll go back to chat, look for this icon. So if I understood your question correctly, is what happens when you deplete all these resources or this allocated quota before the reset date? And basically, for example, let's say the premium requests, you have a certain allocation of premium requests. If you deplete all of them before your reset date, you simply won't be able to use a premium model. So that option will now be disabled for you up until the reset date, and then it will be switched back on. And so that is experience for each and every feature. So if there's a feature that you are able to access because of the subscription that you're on, if the allocated quota gets depleted, then you simply won't be able to use that. So I hope that sort of answers the question that you had there, Shimuli. You can let me know in the chat. Are you also asking, do we have the same agents when using Visual Studio? Good question. I am not sure in terms of the exact features that are available in Visual Studio, but I can tell you for a fact that Copilot is available across a variety of IDEs, but VS Code has the majority of the features. So most of the features that are being tested, most that are experimental, are only accessible within VS Code. And then after some time, the teams decide whether to roll them out in these other IDEs. So in terms of feature parity, you will realize that for some of the features that I show here today, if let's say you're on a different IDE, on Visual Studio, you might not see the full set of agents as well as features. So I'll just call that out. But for VS Code, that should get you the latest and the greatest experimental features. Malvin is asking, how do I add custom models like Azure OpenAI models? That's a fantastic question. So let me go back to showing you what's going on the screen. So let me just switch back to my local model. I'll start a new session. So what I was showing is you can see that I've just sent a prompt to Claude. You can see the response. I sent another prompt to Codex. You've seen the response. You can compare how they all respond and then choose whichever agent suits your style the best. So I'm gonna go back to chat, start a new chat, and then switch over to local. So the question is, how do you switch models? And I said at the beginning that you're not restricted to the models that you provide. So right above these permissions option. So there's this set permissions option where you can easily just configure the level of permission you want your agents to have. So I default to using default approvals. That means I'm going to define which tools I want what agent to have access to. Or if you're a very brave soul who who thrills at the idea of having an adrenaline rush, you can choose to go by bypass of approvals. That means all tools will be auto approved. So this way it won't ask for your explicit permissions to run certain sets of tools. I will caution you, however, if you've connected to different tools connecting to very many services, please use this with a lot of caution to avoid any irreversible changes. And that also applies to autopilot, which is, I believe, the latest. As you can see, it's still in preview. The idea is use autopilot when you don't want the agent to talk to you at all. You want to give it a task and have it only talk to you as soon as it's done, when it has something that works. So you can explore the different permission levels, but as I said, I will caution you, use them very, very carefully. But then at this chat area, we do have the model picker. So this allows you to easily swap between the different models that you have access to. Again, this list varies according to the subscription that you have. We have this first option, which is auto. This means if you don't know which model to use for which task, for instance, there's too many options, you're confused, then you can easily set it to auto, and then based on your prompt, and I see my screen is frozen. Bethany, just confirm you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Your screen is not frozen, but your video is frozen. Yeah, we could see everything on your screen, but your video, not really. Can you hear us? Okay. I think we've lost Julia for a second. Someone is asking, can I design an .md instruction file the GitHub Copilot can reference to enforce the project standards like layered architecture, DTO usage, and consistent code implementation? Yes, yes, you can. So you will do that. Let me share my screen as we wait for Julia, just to show you that system instruction thing. I am on light mode, so don't squint too much. So if you want to create a .md file, you can either come here to instructions and configure instructions, create one for yourself. So you just create a new instruction file and a GitHub.instruction. Let's say I want to do dto.md, and then describe what you want, all the rules you want to enforce, and it will be part of the instruction files. I think that is what you're mentioning. The other thing is we have a very awesome repo called Awesome Copilot. Let me see if I can be able to find it. So it's a very awesome repo where if you want all the instructions and it has a list of instructions, agents, and skills that you might want to use that is already standardized. So we have like agents, instructions, skills, plugins, workflows, hooks, and tools. So if you want to use one that's already there, you can use that. Yeah, I don't know. I hope Julia will come back. I am not the best on GitHub Copilot. But yeah, I think anyone else with any question, I'm good at answering questions. So anyone else with any other question, I can respond and give you a reply. Or maybe, how do you use GitHub Copilot? I'm a very low effort GitHub Copilot user, so I have like a couple of what are they called? No, I don't think it's in this. Let me see if I can find it here. I have a couple of built-in, a couple of MCP servers that I downloaded and some that I created. So like the Azure MCP Foundry, the ones that I use, the Playwright MCP, and then I also have some that we use for different use cases, like the Java ones. So maybe that's something you learn. Yes, Julia, good, you're back. I do not know
Yeah,
how to talk
I
Copilot
don't know
like
what
this.
happened. Guys, I'm sorry. My Teams just froze and kicked me out. I am so sorry. Let me try that one more time.
We can say we are dog fooding teams, so you will not have the same experience as us because
Yeah,
we are the ones testing it out so that you don't suffer. Yes.
this is painful. So confirm you can see my screen and you can hear me and you can
Yeah.
see me. All
Yes.
right. I'm just going to switch off my camera just as a safety, as a precaution, in case it's a bandwidth issue. But I'll just proceed on, and Bethany just interrupt me in case I drop at any point. If
Sure,
I
no
remember
problem.
correctly, we were talking about models, and there was a question around how can you add in your own set of models. So if you click on this gear icon on the model picker, click on that, you should basically see a very long list of models. We have different categories. So we have models that are part of GitHub Copilot. We have models that are running locally on your computer. What that means is you can download models, run them completely offline, and then connect GitHub Copilot to use those models as the backend. And then if you're not seeing the model that you want from this list, there's this add models button. Use that to connect to different providers, Anthropic, XAI, Google, OpenRouter, OpenAI, and the question that was being asked, Azure. So you can easily come in. If there's a model, if there's your preferred provider, you can easily come in and set the model that you want to use. So you're not restricted to the models that are out of the box provided as part of the model picker. So I hope that answers the question. So I'll go next. So we basically have this last section that I wanted to wrap up on in terms of the basic features or setup, and that is where you choose the agent, right? Copilot embraces this idea that you're not just working with a single agent, you can have different agents that specialize in different tasks. So as you can see here, I have a bunch of agents. We'll talk more about them and how to set them up. But there's a concept which is more of a conversation I was hoping to have with all of you, which is, and I've had this so many times, so I just thought to start with, and is the conversation around vibe coding versus traditional software development life cycle. And I'll just share my honest opinions on this. I welcome everyone else to do the same on the chat. But if you just look at the workflow for someone who's, a typical vibe coder, you start from your initial prompt, hey, build me an app that will make me $1,000 overnight. Build that for me. And then you get back some AI generated code. You look at the code, you look at the app, and you're like, no, this is not what I asked for. You refine your prompt, and then you send back, you get some AI generated code. You look at it and you're like, okay, this feature isn't exactly how I wanted it to be. So you're in that loop where you're just editing your prompt while accepting AI generated code. And at the end of the day, you will get at some desired state where you're like, okay, this is output that I can work with. And for some people, it's actually just an app that basically delivers on the task they wanted to achieve. So that's the typical workflow when it comes to vibe coding. But then we have this paradigm, we have this tried and tested framework that has been in the industry for years, decades, maybe, which is the software development lifecycle. So it's a very rigid framework where you start from planning, get your thoughts on the table, get your thoughts within a team in a room, have some brainstorming, create a plan, work on a design, so design the solution, and then start implementing, right? So you can already see how this is different from the typical vibe coding workflow. And then once you're in the implementation phase, this is where you get some visits from a lovely team of people that we all love and enjoy working with. That is the testing team, the QAs. They come in and they're like, okay, your code is okay, but you have no test cases. You don't adhere to our company standards. And then basically you have that loop. And then once you're given the green light, you get to deployment, and then eventually to maintenance. So this is the life cycle that has been tried and tested. And my personal preference, this again is my opinion, is I try, in as much as I'm using AI tools, I try as much as possible to remain within this particular workflow. Yes, there are cases and instances where you just need something that works, especially for personal software. So this is something that will run on my laptop. It will never leave localhost. So it's okay. I'm okay vibe coding that. But for something that I will have actual users, I do try as much as possible to work with AI tools that will adhere to this pipeline. So you can let us know on the chat what's your preferred way of working and how do you actually approach this kind of problems and conversations. So with that, I'm just going to now show one of the features, which is the different agents that we have. And so for the features that I'll be able to demo in this session, I'm just going to stick to that pipeline. Okay, so we'll start with the first step, which was planning, right? So we have our agent. As you can see here, we have a built-in plan agent. So again, GitHub does encourage the whole idea of not just jumping straight into code, start working with a planning agent. And if you want to see how this agent is configured, again, you might be thinking building a custom agent sounds like a lot of work. I promise you it's not. It's simply just a markdown file that you define. So in this case, what you see on this screen is the complete configuration of the planning agent that you've just seen. So you'll see at the very top here, it's a markdown file with the extension .agent.md. And then you have some front matter. This is where you pass in the properties for the agent. You give it a name, give it a description, what it should do, give it a target, give it the set of tools that the agent should have access to. So in this case, it's a planning agent. So it needs to have some level of search capabilities, some read capabilities to your code base, etc. And then you also want to pass in the different agents that it can collaborate with. So in this case, for planning agent, it needs to be able to explore, right? So that's the agent that we're passing in here. And then we have these properties called handoff. So the idea here is once you build a plan, the next possible step is for you to implement it. So you can basically just define a handoff, which will make this easier. And I'm just going to show you instead of just talking about it. And then in this file, what you're doing is basically just passing in instructions in English, in natural language, following a format that everyone can understand what's happening. Someone is saying they're not able to see the screen. So I am sharing VS Code. Is anyone else having trouble viewing my screen?
I think I can see your screen.
You can see the screen.
Yeah, I can see the screen.
Yeah. Sorry, Maxime.
You
Hope
can.
that's how you pronounce your name.
The best thing is you leave and come back again. Dog
All
pudding.
right. Okay, I've seen a couple of responses.
Yeah.
People are good. Okay, let's continue. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the biggest issue is we can barely see the screen itself. We can see the screen, but can you zoom in? Thank you.
Okay, I'll do one better. I'll zoom in, and I'm also going to switch to light theme. I don't care if you judge me.
Yay! Welcome to the side
It's
of.
fine if you judge me, but I hope this is a bit
This is
more
the side
easy on
of
the eyes.
wisdom.
Okay. All right. So sorry about that. If I could see my mouse. Okay. Yeah, so perfect. So you see here basically, okay, so my mouse just stopped working. Wow. There we go. So as you can see, this is just, and everyone should be able to do this. So on your VS Code, just go on the agent, click on plan, and then you'll see this icon over here. And then you can just basically read how this agent has been configured. So for that, I'm just going to show you the scenario we have today. So I have an application that's running. That's the code base that we are currently in. And instead of opening this in a browser, I want us to spend the remaining part of this session on VS Code. I don't want us to leave. So what I'll do is I'll open integrated browser. So what integrated browser is, and I'll just spend a minute talking about it, is it's a browser that was built with agents in mind. Okay, so what do I mean? If you're a frequent user of VS Code, you probably know something like Simple Browser, where you can simply just open some web pages directly on VS Code. But now this is integrated browser, which as you can see here has some components that makes it even easier for agents to work and test these web experiences directly on VS Code. So just to give you an example is I have this not very pretty site. Pardon, it's for demo purposes, but you'll see the footer here. Something is wrong with the footer, right? So instead of spending time describing a prompt, hey, Copilot, my footer has this and this and this, can you do this? You can easily just open integrated browser. And then we have this add to element button, add element to chat button. If I click on that, I can easily just select any element on this web page. And as soon as I do that, you'll see that everything about that particular element just gets dropped into my agent chat, right? So this is the design. This is what the builders of integrated browser had in mind. You can do the same with your logs. So in this case, let's basically just ask it to fix the contrast issue as an example. So you'll see that as part of the context, it basically attached all the files, all the configuration, all the HTML regarding that particular element. Don't save. It was also able to take a screenshot, pass that in as context. And yes, I've seen a comment on the chat. You can easily just pass in your dev tools. So you can see you can open your dev tools, you can pass in your logs. So this way, an agent can even on its own navigate to your web pages, test out the experiences, and you should see that right now as we're speaking, the footer has been fixed, because it was incredibly easy just for me to pass along the context that I wanted the agent to use. So I'll go back to my scenario, which is we now want to see how do we work with plan mode? How do we basically mimic this tried and tested framework of the software development lifecycle? So as you can see on this application of ours, we have a feature that is yet to be implemented. That is the cut functionality. So if I click on that, nothing is happening. So as I said, let's follow the industry tested framework. Instead of jumping in straight to write the code, I'm going to switch to my plan agent, and I'm going to paste in a prompt. And I'm going to ask it, hey, let's create a plan to add cut functionality to code base. And again, I'm using the hashtag symbol just to be very specific in terms of what I want this agent to focus on. So what you'll see happening is that the agent will go off. It is not going to touch any code. And by touch, I mean write any files that I have, but you'll see it reading, okay? And if I can just open the configuration for the agent, we can see side by side what's happening on the right and compare that to the instruction that this agent was given. So the first thing you saw that we set an agent for the plan agent to basically work with. And as you can see here, it's actually running a sub agent to explore this particular code base. So this way it's going to have a very good understanding of what this code is intended to do. And then you can see it's basically just navigating through the files that I have in this particular code base. It's slower than I would have loved it to be, but let's see if it's going to finish up. And guys, I'll be honest, I feel like we won't get through much of the demos within the remaining 4 minutes. So maybe just let us know if you're good to continue. I'm personally good to extend a little bit more to cover this. But if for most of you, you won't be available, then we can maybe schedule a part 2 of this session. But if for most folks, you're good to continue, let us know in the chat and then we'll just proceed. Okay, so you'll see that the plan agent, in this case, the plan agent has, as you can see here, we have very specific instructions. Your sole responsibility is planning. never start implementation. That's why you'll see, in as much as it's taking its time, it's not really working on my code. Then the other feature that you'll see is this agent in plan mode will try and ask some questions just to also clarify, okay, what does this user have in mind? Again, this mimics the traditional brainstorming sessions where you're in a room physically with colleagues, you're brainstorming, you're asking questions. That is what we're trying to see out of this experience. So you can see for the plan agent, before creating a plan, it's now trying to get input from me as the user. So we have this really neat feature. So it's asking what scope should the cart functionality include initially? Let's do extended just to test it out. Should cart work with the existing hard-coded product data or wait? Let's use the hard-coded data for now. Should the cart be persisted? Let's work with session only. But again, if you're not happy with the options the agent is giving you, you can just come in and type your own particular input. So in this case, let's just go with session only. And then user authentication. For now, don't bother about it. Any specific features you want to prioritize? Let's do all of the above, and then I can submit. So in this case, what you've seen is a two-way interaction with a plan agent. It has read my code base. It has now understood what I, as the user, want to achieve, and then it's now going to build a comprehensive, a thorough plan that I can now take to the next agent to implement. Okay, so we'll just give it some time to work. Again, I was hoping it's going to be faster than this, but let's just see how far we're able to go. Okay, so it's getting back to us. Hey, I have all the context I need, so let me create a comprehensive plan. So it has created a plan in memory. Okay, I think this is an important thing to call out. The plan is created in memory. It's not yet written in my current code base. So we'll see a summary of the plan. We have that on the chat. I don't fancy reading this full plan on the chat simply because you want to spend more time on this particular plan, right? So you want to refine it, you want to iterate it before you get to build it out. So what you're seeing here is the element of handoffs. So if I can just show you on our markdown file where we have this front matter defining the handoffs, we're basically telling the agent, okay, once you're done with the plan, give the user one option to start implementation. That is what you're seeing here. Or you can start with autopilot. Remember when I told you that you can assign this to Copilot and tell it to not even talk to you unless it's done with the entire implementation. But in this case, I want to open this plan in the editor because I want to iterate on it. And I find this to be my normal or my default workflow, where the agent comes up with an initial plan, and then I spend most of my time refining that plan, ensuring that I understand the design decisions that have been made, I understand the options that were considered, and if I'm not good with a particular aspect of that plan, I can easily just change it up. So that's something I recommend as a best practice. Spend as much time as you need on co-working with the agents on this particular file. So you'll see it has opened a file. It's using the prompt format. So if, again, you're familiar with Copilot, we have this concept of customizations. So you want Copilot to be very easy to use, and you want to make it your own. So what we see here is that it has created a prompt file. I'll just keep it for now. And what actually this means is that you'll see at the very top here, we have this run button. So that means this file has been written in a way that it's a ready prompt. It's a ready to use prompt that you can easily just drop into a session and then have the agent carry on with it. But in this case, I just want to see the plan. So this is basically what we need to do. These are the steps. It has broken it down into phases. So typical computer science concepts, break a big problem into smaller chunks and then work on them. So that's fine. But what I want to do next is basically just hand this over to a design agent. In our workflow, if I can just open this file again, we've now seen how you can start on the planning stage. Let's now work on designing, okay? And if you know me, I promise you I am not a designer. I have a very low level of creativity, so please don't count on me to design experiences. But the good thing is, again, we can have Copilot be what we need it to be. So in this case, I'm going to showcase a few more features. So we are now done with the plan agent. And so what you'll see here is I have another custom agent called the designer agent. Again, Julia, this sounds complicated, but I promise it's not. Just click on configure custom agent, create a new agent, select where you want the agent to sit. And then in this case, I default to the GitHub folder, and then give your agent a name. That's all you need to do to create the Markdown file. And then you'll instantly have a custom agent that you can work with. So what I did before the session is I created a designer agent. I can quickly show you the configuration. So it's the designer agent. This is what it does. And then this is a list of the tools that the agent should basically use. And then I wanted to collaborate with two other agents, a reviewer for the designs, as well as a front-end developer to do the actual implementation. So in the interest of time, we won't read so much about the configuration, but the whole idea is I'm just giving it the full workflow. I want you to do this whenever I ask for a new design. I want you to use this and these tools, and hopefully you'll get to see that experience live. So I'm going to save this file as prompt. I'm going to save it in my current folder. So what we can do right here is I can easily just switch to my designer agent. And I'll switch to a different model because in as much as this might be slightly more expensive, it is Opus 4.6 does a fairly pretty decent job when it comes to building designs. But before I sent this, the first thing that I did was build a custom design agent that is a designer agent, but I'm also going to give it tools that it can actually use. Okay, so I'm building an actual designer. So the first tool that I give it is if I click on this tools icon, this will open the set of tools and MCP servers that I have connected. And of course, VS Code has what I would call first class support for MCP. Let's see, we have some questions coming in on the chat. Which IDE? This is Visual Studio Code Insiders. So normal Visual Studio Code, but it's the Insiders version, which you can easily install just to get the latest and honestly the best features of Copilot as they're in experimental phase, so you can just try them out. So this is VS Code. So as I was saying, I'm not just going to work with a custom agent. I'm going to also give it access to tools. And the first tool that I have is, I'm just going to confirm that it's working. So it's an MCP server that is running locally. So I'm just going to restart it. And then I'm going to check in my, okay, so I need to add some configuration for this particular MCP server. So I should have done this before, bear with me. So I'm going to create a VS Code folder. And then inside this folder, I'm going to create a new file, call it mcp.json. And then this is where you can easily come in and add MCP servers that you want your agents to have access to. So in this case, I'm just going to open skills. And don't worry, I'll talk more about what this is in a minute. So I'm just going to bring that over into my file. I'll paste this in. Formatting will complain a little bit. There, so I have penpot. Now, I don't know how many of you do design work, but probably you've stumbled upon this tool. I'm going to start this, and then I'm just going to show you what penpot is. Again, I said that we're going to work on VS Code, so I won't even bother to open up a browser. I'm just going to, again, open another instance of integrated browser and look for design. Let me see. Let me just copy that URL. It's design.penpot.app. So we have design.penpot.app. So, and I think we'll just share some resources for you to try it out, test it out, but it's basically an open source web-based design tool. Think of Figma, that is basically open source and an alternative that you can try. So in this case, you'll see I have an empty design page. So it has absolutely nothing, no design. As I said, I'm not a designer. So on top of our custom designer agent, I'm also going to ensure that it has access to the PenPod MCP server. And this MCP server exposes tools that the agent should be able to use to actually build different designs. Sorry, Bethany, I'm seeing that some pings on the chat that folks are not able to see my screen. So just double checking if that's the experience for everyone.
I can't see your screen, so I'm not sure.
Israel, maybe try
Anyone
rejoining.
else? Yeah.
Israel, try rejoining and see if it's gonna pick up. Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying, I have given this designer agent access to the PenPot MCP server, so that's already configured. And then on top of that, I won't stop there. We have this element of skills. And the skill is, think of it as, let's say you want to pick up a new life skill. You want to make the best meals in your entire city. You basically go and maybe take a course, a culinary course. So it's the same thing. You want to give Copilot or these agents additional skills. And again, it might sound complicated. I promise it's not. We are working with Markdown files. So in the same folder.github folder, you'll see a skills directory. And then inside these skills, I have another folder called UI UX design. And this is where I have a skill.md file. Okay. So what is this file doing basically? So this file is basically giving Copilot some additional sets of skills. So this one is the PenPot UI UX design guide, where I'm telling the agent that, hey, I am teaching you a new skill. I am teaching you how to use this tool or this platform. It has these tools. This is how you can set up the MCP server. This is the configuration. So this is what you saw me do a few minutes ago, just ensuring that I have the MCP server running locally. And again, we won't spend much time on that. But if you're curious and want to test this out, we do have the awesome Copilot repository. I'm just going to bring this over on this screen. So let me just drop this link again for you on the chat. But this is where I highly recommend you visit just to see the different customization options you have for working with Copilot, as well as community contributed skills. So for example, the PenPot skill that I'm showing, I actually just got it from this website. Okay, so if you go on skills and then look for PenPot, you should see the skill that I'm referring to. So this means if you want Copilot to have a specific behavior, you don't have to worry about writing the configuration from scratch. We do have some community contributed resources that you can reuse to basically get started easily. Okay, so back on VS Code. Switch over. Any questions? Any burning questions? I know we're out of time. This is being recorded, so if you have to drop, no worries, you'll find the recording. So at this point, this custom agent has the skills and has the tools that it needs to build different designs for me. And so I'm just going to send in this prompt. So as you can see, I'm working using my designer agent. I have my model. I hope that I have connected it to the MCP server and that it's running. It has the skill that's working. So while this agent works, I'm simply just going to open this page. And the idea is that this particular agent is going to read the plan we have created. And then you'll see that it's now following the instructions I gave it. I told it, if I've given you a design task, read the current code base, understand if I have any existing branding, so that you use those for your designs. And then hopefully we'll see it start to invoke the different tools that it now has access to. And then we should see some designs coming in real time on our Penport UI. Okay, so let me see if we have any questions. That's the beauty of working with agents. They can easily do the presentation, complete tasks as we have conversations. So I'm just going to scroll through the chat and see if we have any questions. Okay, so hopefully those who are having issues seeing my screen, I hope that's fixed now. Amos, yes, we will share the recording. Not sure where, but the recording will be made available either through AI Collective or the ADC meetup page. And as you can see, we do have some designs coming in. Let me zoom out a bit. I'm also gonna minimize this and there. So you should see right now I'm actually not doing anything. So I'll just, let me see if I can switch on my camera just for you to see that I'm not really working on these designs. As I said, I'm not a designer, so I don't have the skills to even do this, but we have created a custom agent. We have given it access to the tools it needs. We've given it the skills that it also needs to successfully complete this. And as you can see now, it's already building out the designs, okay? Looking again at the questions, and hey, if you want to unmute, ask a question, that's also allowed. We have all the time as the agents work.
There's a big question that I'm also wondering. Does Copilot consume a lot of RAM or CPU?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot. What activity monitor? Let's check. I don't have a direct, simple answer to that. So the best I could do is just check that with you right now.
Maybe you can just check on your.
Yeah. So do you have it working?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the activity monitor. I always remember task manager, but I don't remember this one.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to see here if, what classifies it as a lot. I mean, what's a lot to you? But basically, you can see the consumption coming in here. We have the agent working. Of course, I have different applications running at the same time. So I would say for such a task, maybe it's fairly usage. That's my very uninformed response. But sorry, I don't have a very direct and helpful answer. But as you can see, just from what I'm sharing right now, you could probably maybe deduce what this would mean for you. I'll just move this over to this side. And then let's see if we can handle something else because we're way out of time. Or I don't know, do we consider having a part 2 of this session or we just
vote for part 2.
You vote for part 2?
Yes, because
and we have
yeah.
I know we have a collective leadership as well, so they can let us know if that's doable.
Yes, Arthur, we have, I think, Shadrach, we also have Edgar, so you can tell us. The people have voted part 2.
Julia and Bethany, it's always doable. I mean, it's if people want a sequel to this, then that means the session is achieving its intended purpose. Yeah, so part 2 is always doable.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just trying to be mindful of everyone's time. I know we only blocked 1 hour and we're way over that. And trust me, there's so much to Copilot that we are yet to actually go through. So I'm happy to put a pause on this. The thing is, I won't promise that these designs will be as you see them right now, because again, these models are very non-deterministic. So next time we might ask it to build designs and then it just comes up with its own thing. But I'm hoping that you all see the idea and you get the full plan that I had, because what I had prepared for this session was to simply just walk through these work through this particular workflow and then see how does Copilot evolve to support, professional developers who are tied to this framework. And that's the whole idea. And I'm hoping that we've achieved that through this session. So we'll see that the agent is still working super hard. And trust me, for the designers, I know Bethany is a designer. So how would you rate whatever you're seeing on the screen right now?
I can rate it like a 5 because there's like some missing, like
Wait,
the
5
buttons.
what?
It's good, but like,
I
are
mean,
you
it's still
seeing the
working.
missing details in the like buttons?
Yeah.
But it's still working. So, and then is it responsive?
Yes, that's a good question. And just realized my camera is still off.
Yeah,
Probably for the best. But the 2 times that I tried this before, it actually started with the desktop versions, and then
yeah.
without me even telling it, it went on to build the mobile version. Without me even coming back and being like, hey, please think about your life and we should be having responsive designs. But it was able to just easily pick that up and
And
create
like
all the
come up.
designs for me, right? So unless it decides to fail me in front of all these eyes, but before I promise you that it worked, and I have a video for that, so I'll be sharing that soon.
Yeah, we can also share the video. So since it will be responsive in future, we can give it now like a 7 out
Actually,
of. Actually, it is. It
look at that.
is.
We
So
do
this
have
is
our
actually
mobile
even an
design.
8.
So are you ready to
100%.
change your score?
100%. It's already changed.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is actually cool. The beauty of this is, as I said, this is an open source tool. So again, you don't have to worry so much about money. Guys, this is running locally. And then number two, from a Copilot standpoint, you can also run this with local models. So again, it's also pretty easy to configure a workflow that works for you with the resource limitations that you might have. Okay, so yeah, I encourage you to just experiment, go wild, try all these. As you can see, the agent is still working. This is Opus, so it's a very heavy and a very powerful model. So it's trying to think of the edge cases. It's trying to evaluate, hey, do the designs look good? But it looks like it's actually doing a pretty decent job. I'm just wasting time for it to do one last step, which I'm hoping it will get to, which is for it to actually use Playwright to maybe like navigate to these designs, test them out, etc. So that's probably something that hopefully we can see in part 2 of this session, because it looks like that's what the majority wants. But yeah, I think Bethany, Arthur, I can hand it back to you for your guidance on whether to continue or to save this for the next part of this session.
I think I'd like to see the ending. Like,
Mm.
I know
For this
what
run.
Playwright does, so I want everyone to see how powerful Playwright is because of the, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. Let's see. I can't promise on the speed, but let's see. It looks like it's exporting the design. So I feel like the model feels it's in a good spot to export this. But as I said, it's a very good starting point, right? Like this has taken us just a few minutes and my internet is a bit choppy, but you can imagine how fast you can be building software with such tools at your disposal, right? So that's incredibly helpful. Then actually something that I can show you is right here on your chart, there's this, I don't even know what to call it, but it's like the context window. So this shows you in real time the tokens that you've consumed, the tokens that have been reserved for the response for the current run. And then it's going to give you like just a summary of how much of these tokens are going to the system instructions, to the tool definition, to your own prompt. And then something that you can easily do is compact the conversation. So what does this mean? Remember, for such a scenario, we've been working with this agent for quite some time. So that means we have so much in our context window. And that, of course, will probably run out. But then we have the compact conversation option, which will just summarize the entire running session and then have like a 1 paragraph summary. and then just replace the entire context window with that. So this way you're not having, or you're not running out of tokens that can be used in a particular instance. So that's also a pretty neat feature, just to also help ensure that you're being efficient in how you're using the tool. And something else that I didn't show you is that as soon as the agent started working, it created a to-do list for us to easily track the progress, which, now come to think of it, we should have used to gauge how much work was remaining. But yeah, so it tries to give you this really nice UI for you to easily follow along. But Bethany, you got your wish. So the agent, the designer agent is done. So it has refined, it has worked on its designs, and it's given us a summary. This is what I've been able to do. And then we defined some handoff options. So again, I do have yet a third agent, which is the design reviewer agent. This agent, again, the sole purpose is for it to look at the designs that have been created, and then against my own defined principles and standards, submit or produce a report on how that design is. So again, maybe that falls into the part 2 of this session, but yeah, you wanted to see it get to the end, and I think it did. So I can now pass it back to you guys to decide on how you'd want to approach part 2. Trust me, I can do this all day. I never get tired of talking about Copilot. So I'm just being mindful of you guys. In other words, Nini Lilia, because for me, I can do this all night.
When we started, I said Julia has all the knowledge about Copilot, because the way you use Copilot and the way you talk about Copilot, like njia panda, like one is going the same is. We met at the beginning, and then I don't know what happened. But now I think I've learned a lot. So for the people who registered on Meetup or Luma, you'll get the recordings. I'll try and have it in like a public place. So either have it on the ADC YouTube or the other YouTube channel we have, and see if you can get access to it, so that like everyone can access. And if you have any comments, you can leave it for us. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you as well, Arthur. If you enjoyed the session, if actually Julia taught you something new, you should be on your keyboard typing, saying thank you, or just saying something nice about Julia. But other than that, thank you so much. Arthur is asking when we should have our part 2 session, because I've realized this is a time, maybe we'll have it in one of the Wednesdays that's coming up, probably in April or later this month. I think this will be the time, because majority of you came in, so that's good. We'll share the links again. We'll share on Meetup, and Arthur will share on Luma. So if you're part of a collective or you're part of the ADC community, thank you so much for joining us. I didn't expect to have this much audience engagement in here as well. So thank you. I'll stop the recording here, and let me stop it. And then if you have any questions for Julia, thank you, Manasseh. He's saying great session.